kind of really started when I was in San Francisco. And when I was in San Francisco, the farmers markets and were just amazing. Even 20 years ago, they were amazing. So over 20 years ago, they had so much stuff and so many farmers. And it really came out of the hippie movement in the 60s and 70s. So they have all these wonderful organic farms throughout Northern California. So just going to farmers markets and getting on, co-op trucks and driving up with my buddies and going to these farmers markets and getting this amazing produce and stuff like that. And just all of a sudden you start realizing that this is like a whole different world that I'd never been exposed to before. So that was a lot of fun. And so when I left California, I went to Chicago. There was really no farmers markets in Chicago. And then I went to New York, and there was really no farmers market. The one in Union Square was just getting off the ground, but it wasn't that great, nearly as great as it is now. So there just wasn't that breadth of ability. Even in Puerto Rico, there was a couple local farmers, but they were just getting started. So when I came back to St. Louis and opened the Crossing, we started looking for the local farmers, and we couldn't find anybody. And then when they did start popping up, they would show up with 400 pounds of broccoli. And they're like, "You want broccoli?" I'm like, "Yes, I'll have 3 heads." "You don't need more?" I'm like, "No, that's all I need. I'll need more next week," or whatever. So it was just like there wasn't a diversity of ingredients, and that's grown, really taken off in the last 5 years. But one of the things that that has impacted me is traveling, and I've done a few trips to Europe in the last couple of years, last 5 years or so, and that's really been probably the trips to Europe and reading Michael Pollan's books on food and reading about Joe Salatin and stuff like that have really impacted me greatly in the last few years. Because I would go to Italy and you'd see these people just sitting down, having a meal and relaxing and enjoying life and talking over a meal, and just it was what community was about to me, was just that meal time, that dinner. And so I started looking at that, and it was, when I'd go to Italy and I'd say, "This lamb is great, where'd you get it?" And they're like pointing to a hill right across the street or something like that, and you're like, "What?" And like, "These vegetables are great, where'd you get them?" Pointing at another hill. And it was just like this. Everything was like communal. And of course it's a different world, but even like when you drove into big cities like Rome or Naples or something like that, you drive into these cities and there's farm fields. Every couple blocks there's huge farm fields, and right down the highway. So it'd be like driving down Highway 40 in St. Louis, and you just see farms left and right. They're not tearing up those farms and building McMansions and stuff like that. They're saving those farms and utilizing those farms in the cities and doing that, and they don't lose track. See, I think we get so caught up in trying to build the next mansion, the next house, the next neighborhood, the next school, the next this, that we keep consuming all of our farmland within the cities. So it's harder and harder to get all of our produce in the cities. So I came back from those trips to Europe really challenged thinking about it. Then I read this book and I read about Joel and I read about what Michael's gone through, and you're just like, all of a sudden everything's coming together. And so, we put together value-based type of dining experiences where people can come to the Crossing or a Chero, and for $60 you can have 2 4-course menus and sit back. It takes 2 hours, 2.5 hours to eat, and people are relaxing and enjoying their meal, and conversation is flowing, and our wait staff is like tuned into it, and we're not just like prim and proper people dropping off the food like, excuse me, your beef tenderloin. It's like everything is there to just, we treat them as if they were invited to our own home. So if you were having a party and you invited me over to your party, you wouldn't say, I wouldn't walk to the front door and you're like, yeah, your table's over there, go have fun. See you later. He's like, come on in. We're so glad you're here. We want you to enjoy your meal tonight. We want you to have a great time. If you need anything, we're here for you. Just like you would if you invited people into your own home. So that's our focus, is to treat people as you would want to be treated. So that's how we want to treat them. And that comes to the same thing when it comes down to food, it comes to wine. We try not to buy the bulk mass-produced wine. We try to buy small, independent producers making, wines with integrity, and really trying to use the gifts of grapes to produce wonderful wine. Same thing with beer, same thing with our food. So when we buy food to put on our table, we think, would I eat this? If the answer is I won't eat it, then we don't serve it. It's like we try to do everything we can the best way we can. And, in a city like St. Louis, in the growing area of what is available to grow in St. Louis, it's a hard place because we don't really have 4 seasons here. So our winter growing constraints are pretty bad. It's really rough to get a lot of winter vegetables grown in this area. So it's hard, and we work at it. We do our best to use as much organic and local product as we can. We use grass-fed beef. We use everything we can do. And I'm not going to say that we're 100% perfect at it, but we have the goal of going in that direction. And that's what we're constantly working on to do across the board.